Feel free to take a seat. I'm Sean Hinton. Actually, I'm not. I'm Tamsin Smith, a Henry Crown Fellow, and I think the organizers decided that after 2 nights of having your stomach pumped by Sean, you might need a little belly rub. So I'm here to share some poetry with you on hopefully thematically appropriate given the discussions we've been having over the course of the last couple of days. But I thought this, in fact, is not the Norton Anthology of Poetry. It is Tim Ferriss's book. And as he is my classmate, and this is the Bible of the Lucky 13 class, I thought I might encourage you all to read it by distilling it into a haiku. With apologies to Rilke, who I'll be pilfering a line from. You must change your life. Commence on page 226. It will change your wife. Thank you for laughing. Now an excerpt from The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock by T.S. Eliot. Let us go then, you and I, when the evening is spread out against the sky, like a patient etherized upon a table. Let us go through certain half-deserted streets, the muttering retreats of restless nights in one-night cheap hotels and sawdust restaurants with oyster shells, streets that follow like a tedious argument of insidious intent to lead you to an overwhelming question. Oh, do not ask what is it. Let us go and make our visit. In the room the women come and go, talking of Michelangelo. And indeed there will be time to wonder, do I dare and do I dare? Time to turn back and descend the stair with the bald spot in the middle of my hair. Well, indeed, there will not be time for me to recite the remaining 100 lines of this brilliant poem, which is a pity as it poses all the existential questions about life and our purpose here, whether to act and how to act. Prufrock proposes to squeeze the universe into a ball to roll it towards some overwhelming question. He asks, do I dare disturb the universe? But he leaves the answer to the listener. And this, it strikes me, is a lot like the fellowship programs that we all are participating in or have participated in. They raise all the big what-ifs, all the big questions, but the answers are left to us. The decisions, the visions, and revisions are left to us. But how do we presume, and where do we begin? Think on that, and while doing so, I have a final poem. This one is by Rilke. Hopefully I'll redeem myself for him. And I want to dedicate it to Eric Motley and to his grandmother, who helped him venture out, to all our benefit. It is to me a poem that speaks about true leadership and true living. It rolls the ball towards courage, sacrifice, curiosity, and love. What do you hear? Dove that ventured outside, flying far from the dovecote, housed and protected again, one with the day, the night, knows what serenity is, for she has felt her wings pass through all distance and fear in the course of her wanderings. The doves that remained at home, never exposed to loss, innocent and secure, cannot know tenderness. Only the one-back heart can ever be satisfied, free through all it has given up to revel in its mastery. Being arches itself across the vast abyss. Ah, the ball that we dared, we hurled into infinite space. Doesn't it fill our hands differently with its return, heavier by the weight of where it has been? So step up, act, disturb the universe. I dare you. And now for something completely different. Stace Lindsay, enjoy.
Afternoon, everybody. After Sean's comedy and the beautiful poetry of Tamsin, we figure it's time for some data. In 2008, Peter and the board of directors of the Aspen Institute asked me to put together a strategic plan for this idea, which at the time we called kind of the Aspen Leadership Network. And the question was, what is it we're really trying to build? And what do we need to do to build it? And during that process, we had a chance to talk to a wide variety of people to put together the plan and to think about what might we build together. And Peter asked me today if I just share with you in kind of 10 minutes what the essence of what we discovered, which really, in short, is three things. How did the AGLN actually come about? What are the antecedents which led to this amazing movement we're all participating in? Second, what's it look like today? How big is this? We're a small subset of the Aspen Global Leadership Network here. Third, what are we doing to actually make it better? And so I'm going to spend the next 10 minutes talking about these three things, and then Margot's going to come up and share with you some ideas about how we might imagine the future of what the Aspen Global Leadership Network might become. So in the beginning was the idea of text-based dialogue. The University of Chicago and Mortimer Adler, and the approach of saying, how do we take the great Western texts, or at least the great Western paragraphs, bring leaders together to an exclusive, secluded mountain retreat, and engage in a type of dialogue that's really unique to force these leaders to rethink their assumptions about what is the nature of the good society. And so Aspen would bring together these leaders and these texts and mix them in something that was called the Aspen Executive Seminar. After the seminar, all of these leaders who represented various parts of society would go back, some in politics, some in business, some in the arts. They would have spent 2 or 3 weeks together studying these great ideas, and they dispersed to their respective communities. And for 50 years, this was the predominant, iconic experience of the Aspen Institute. Then in 1997, with the generosity and vision of the Henry and Gladys Crown Charitable Trust, with the able leadership of Keith Berwick, Ben Dunlop, Skip Battle, Francis Hoffman, who's around here somewhere, his commitment to this. The idea was, how do we build upon what we've started and make it better? So in addition to the Aspen Executive Seminar, they thought, let's do 2 other things. Let's build a community of fellows. So let's select 20 people to take the seminar and bring them together for 3 other seminars and round out the experience and challenge them to not only understand these texts, but to begin thinking about what do these texts mean for their lives. And so let's introduce an element of action. And the action is embodied in the projects that we all undertake to do. And the hope was that if you bring together this community of 20 people for 4 weeks over an 18-month period, they will bond together, they will be inspired, they will make explicit commitments to do good in the world in their respective communities, and through that they might forge the good society. Now, from that beginning, since 1997, we had the first Henry Crown Fellowship class. Every Henry Crown Fellowship class has fellows who do these projects. 1998 Henry Crown Fellow Peter Reiling had an idea. Peter's idea was, what if we take this powerful experience and bring it to some of the most dysfunctional, most challenged, most challenging environments in the world, and think about building a new generation of young leaders throughout Africa that could really turn the tide and make a difference in Africa. So in 1998, he launched the African Leadership Initiative as a pilot. Along time came Ken Ofori-Atta and Ali Mufaruki, who helped him launch the West Africa Leadership, or the East Africa Leadership Initiative and the Ghanaian Leadership Initiative, and Romeu, our lone Mozambican in the audience somewhere, the Mozambican Leadership Initiative. And these pilots proved to be very successful. So much so that Hayne Hipp saw the Henry Crown Fellowship and the pilots and said, what happens if we take this experience and try it in a single state, where we have much more probability of moving the needle, where we can get everybody engaged and we know each other and we can make a difference. So thus was launched the Liberty Fellowship. At the same time, I guess right before then, I don't want to neglect the South African Leadership Initiative, which came from Henry Crown Fellow Isaac Shongwe in the 6 Degrees class. Took the model with Peter and brought it to South Africa. We have the Rodell Fellowship. This was Bill Buttinger. And Mickey Edwards asking the question, what would happen if we took elected leaders from both sides of the aisle in the United States and created the same intimate experience where they could have this deep fellowship and then be challenging one another to go back and make a difference with their lives in their elected service. Thus was born the Rodell Fellowship. My Henry Crown Fellowship was to launch the Central American Leadership Initiative in conjunction with Peter Reiling. And that launched in 2005. 2006, it was the Nigeria Leadership Initiative and the India Leadership Initiative. 2007, we had the New Schools and the Cato Fellowship. The New Schools Initiative was focused on, instead of a geography, it was focused on this idea of how do we take a critical theme, education, and bring leaders from all the education together to think about how they might work together to challenge the way we do education in the United States. And that was Kim Smith, also a 6 Degrees Henry Crown Fellow. Cato Fellowship, same idea, but with the environment. So some of these issues don't know geographic boundaries. How do we begin working together to build the coalitions that can get things done? And as you will see, in 2008, 10th class, Shane Tejerani, 12th class, Shadia, and Mayushi launched the Middle East Leadership Initiative. I had the opportunity to help moderate those. It was an absolutely life-transforming event, not only for the Middle Easterners, but for us moderators as well. In 2012, we're hoping to launch the China and Southeast Asia Leadership Initiative and a new follow-on for the schools called the Teacher Leaders Initiative. So I just want you to take a look at this and note a couple of things. One, it all started because of the Henry Crown Fellowship and the vision of the founders of that. And it builds upon this platform, which is the Aspen Institute. But they all emerge organically from the authentic desire of individual people to make a difference in a different part of the world. There's no limit to what this could become. And I do want to, he'll kill me for this, but I want you to note that one thing, all these lines point to one person in this room. So I'd like to just pause for a minute and give Peter Reiling heartfelt thanks, wherever you are, Peter. Really a remarkable thing you've begun, and I know we're all privileged to be part of the journey, so thank you. So what's happened? 1997, there were 22 fellows. Excuse me. 14 different fellowships evolved over the coming years. Today, as we sit here, there's 1,340 fellows in the Aspen Global Leadership Network. When we look out to 2015, there will be almost 2,200 fellows. If we peel back that layer for a moment and say, who are they? They're still predominantly North American, 56%, but the rest of the world is catching up. And as those of you who live in the United States can attest, the power of bringing the rest of the world into our dialogue creates tremendous opportunity to enhance our own vision of the good society. And I think you can see tremendous opportunities for us to engage, to break our bubble and engage with the rest of the world. So we're hoping to expand these numbers tremendously. We do all leaders are entrepreneurial by nature. That's the defining characteristic. About 60% come from business, 20% from civil society, 20% from government. And we're about 62% men and 38% women, something we would like to change, not in the spirit of a quota. You've got good women candidates, we want them, because that's a voice that needs to be present at the table in all of the regions. Something that comes with this are a hell of a lot of seminars. This year we will moderate 40 different seminars. If you take a look, the seminars are the core seminars. We do moderator training every year, the Act 2 seminars. Then we have these mixing seminars where we bring fellows together from all over the world for the Leading in an Era of Globalization seminar. If you add on top of that the reunion seminars, we'll do close to 70 gatherings of fellows this year. Once a week, somewhere in the country, the Aspen Global Leadership Network is mobilizing a community to have these discussions, to challenge one another, to step up, to think big, and to commit to making a difference in their societies, which I think is just tremendous. So what's the vision? What we're trying to do is to create a platform that can deliver these life-transforming seminars consistently to challenge leaders to do things that will make a difference and enable both local leaders, but I think more importantly, and you begin to get the feel here, local leaders working together to solve global problems. The environment we can't solve one country at a time. We need to cross borders. The challenges we face today don't know geographic and political borders. We've got to begin working together with strong local leaders to focus on these global problems. How the heck do you do this? Well, there's a bunch of pieces to the puzzle. If you put them together, there's a part of the world which you see, which is the visible stuff. It's your fellowship, it's your classmates, it's your projects. It's the initiative to which you belong or the class to which you belong and the hope for impact. But underneath that, as I think we all know, there's a tremendously talented, competent, and committed team of people working on the content, the curriculum, the readings, the moderating, the mentoring, the organization, the strategies, and the structures needed to deliver these flawless experiences, and the capital. It takes an awful lot of money to run these and to run them well. So there are teams working on all of those. And I guess what I'd like to do is point out that this is replicated in every single one of the initiatives. Everybody who has started one of these initiatives is a dynamic entrepreneur in their own rights. And they have to recreate the wheel to some degree to think about, what does this experience mean in my part of the world? And what might it mean? Behind them stand a number of very committed Aspen trustees. There's 16 of them here. I won't name them all. Some of them are Henry Crown Fellows, but many of them sit on what's known as the Aspen Leadership Initiatives Committee, and they're tremendously committed. I think I heard Walter say the other night, this continues to be strategically important to the Institute and one of the most important aspects of the Institute today. So just briefly, when you think about all of the stuff that goes on, as we were doing the strategic plan, it's like, Peter, you've got a million things to do. Let's try to distill it to 4 critical things. Being a good consultant, we always have to think in 3s or 4s. First, you want to consistently amaze, delight, and challenge your fellows. If you have a bad seminar experience, the whole thing falls apart. We need to deliver excellence, and so the moderators are absolutely critical here. And I want to just also publicly acknowledge Paul Anderson and his family for supporting all of the moderator training. He saw this early and said, I want to help you build a moderator corps. And so he underwrites, he and his family, all of the moderator training, which is absolutely critical. The second is connecting the dots. So once you've had these experiences, you leave the funnel. The worst thing we could do is let entropy take over and everybody goes their own way. How do we bring people together and connect the dots and make the connections where we can do real things together? Third, how do we make this more than just an exercise in self-congratulation? How do we make a real difference in the world? And finally, how do we build something to last? So in true consulting form, we build a nice little framework. We say, well, there are 4 things that need to be done. Around those, we put strategic initiatives, all of which I will not read. But I just want to give you, in my closing minutes here, an example of something from each of these quadrants, these strategic initiatives that Peter and his team are putting forward. So first, what are we doing? Amazing, delighting, and challenging. I just mentioned the moderators. Over 40 seminars will be delivered this year. There's 6 or 7 senior moderators in this network. Each of us do 8 seminars a year. And then there's a network of another 20 to 30 moderators in training, all of whom are donating their time, practically donating their time to do this work. It's a labor of love, and I consider it some of the most important work I've ever had the privilege to do in my life. This is big. And again, Paul, thank you for your help in putting that together. The second thing, connecting the dots. Well, one way we connect the dots, we had everybody in 2007 come together to do the Aspen seminar together in Aspen. This last year, we said, you know what, let's try something different. Let's have all of the fellows experience the globalization seminar together in different parts of the world. And so this past year, many of you in the audience have experienced this globalization seminar, an absolutely profound experience when you don't just talk the theory of globalization, you experience it. And you meet people from around the world who give you a different perspective. So that's one thing we're doing to connect the dots. Another is this. Here you are. I don't think I'm unique in walking down the campus today and yesterday and thinking, my God, I could dream any dream, meet 6 people in this room, and we could change the world together. So what's holding us back? Another thing we're doing to connect the dots. You've all seen the iPhone and Android apps. This is about locating fellows. Anywhere you go in the world, look somebody up. Version 2.0, the Fellow Exchange, job opportunities, investment opportunities, events that are going on, things that you need help on, put it out there. Spend time on this site and figure out how can this network help me achieve my dreams? And what might I be able to do with the gifts I've been given to help others achieve their dreams? This one I don't expect you to read. The projects have become so important that there's now a methodology for every seminar. Where should the projects be? How do we think about them? How do we give critical feedback and ask fellows, don't just check the box. Use this as an opportunity to take some risks, do something different. Imagine a different future and try it out. This is a safe space for you to be creative. And of course, as we saw yesterday, we're wanting to both acknowledge and celebrate the successes, and we want to create examples to inspire other people to stretch even further what they can do. And we want to put capital behind those that are succeeding. And for that, I also want to, we thanked her yesterday, but Anne and your foundation, thank you. Fantastic. So there's a lot more that can be said. This is a brief summary of all of the work. I just want to challenge you personally now as we think about it. Each of your classes, your fellowships, your groups, I just want to ask you to think about what comes next and not to wait for Peter or the Aspen Institute to say, here's what comes next, to really own it. What do you want to build next? So I'll just leave you with this thought before introducing Margot. George Bernard Shaw. This is the true joy in life, the being used for a purpose recognized by yourself as a mighty one, the being thoroughly worn out before you're thrown on the scrap heap, the being a force of nature instead of a feverish, selfish little clod of ailments and grievances, complaining that the world will not devote itself to making you happy. Thank you. So, Margot, come on up. You all know by now Margot Pritzker. Margot is the chair of the Aspen Leadership Committee, a tremendous supporter and sponsor of the Aspen Global Leadership Network. And I think it's safe to say without her championship, none of this would be happening. So, Margot, thank you.
Thank you, Stace. Good afternoon to everyone here. That was really a terrific summary of where we are today from 1997 to this wonderful gathering of fellows from all around the world. We can and we should be really proud of where we have come to and all of our success. But you know, listening to Stace, it occurs to me, just like every fellow who comes into our fellowship is an inflection point, the Aspen Global Leadership Network is also at an inflection point. We've proved that we know how to build out these leadership initiatives, both around the world and across borders and across sectors. And we've begun to demonstrate what can happen when we connect the dots and bring together fellows from across classes and across geographies. The challenge for us now is to figure out how to move the global network, just like we do with fellows, from success to significance. I believe we can really do this. I believe we're doing it, and I can believe we can do it even more. But if we're going to have the impact on the world that we all want to have, I also believe it's going to require a shift in mindset of many of us gathered here today. It's going to mean taking real ownership for the success of what we've created and what we're doing. It means, as you're hearing over and over, it means stepping up, each of us, all of us. Why? Because we have to. I'm from Chicago. You can probably tell from my accent, right? I certainly live in Chicago. And every day, really no matter where I am, I look at a Chicago newspaper. And when I look in the local section, I see stories of our struggling schools. When I look in the national section, I see a deadlocked Congress. In the business section, I look at the desperate need for innovation to get us out of this ditch that we've dug ourselves into. In the international section, I read more about more unrest in the Mideast, more drugs flowing through places like Guatemala and El Salvador. Pulling all this together, I listen to Stace, and I think, look at all the groundbreaking work, often heroic work, that all of you have done, are doing, and we've heard a lot about over the last couple of days. And I think to myself, why can't we pull all this together into something even bigger? So I look at Kim Smith investing in education entrepreneurs to improve public education across the United States. Mickey Edwards rallying elected leaders to focus on the country rather than just their parties. Hildegard Vasquez giving women new skills to find jobs in Panama. Chadia challenging business leaders in the Mideast to step up. Silvia Herrera exposing the drug kings in Guatemala and Mexico. This is all so inspiring. We were all really inspired by these stories that we've heard this week. So why, I wonder, why aren't we doing what all entrepreneurs with proven high impact ideas do? Why aren't we going to scale? I believe the time has come from proving the concept for the Aspen Global Leadership Network to taking it public. Just like Henry Crown Fellow Reid Hoffman did with LinkedIn, or Tim Westergren did with Pandora, like Thomas Layton did with OpenTable, or Reed Hastings with Netflix. Just imagine where we could be in 10 years. So imagine this. Imagine that Michael Ferro, Henry Crown Fellow from Chicago, and just arrived, has just sold one of his portfolio companies. Inspired by his fellowship experience and by the call to step up here at Act 2, Michael decides to take 20% of his earnings to create a new fund. It's a fund to support ventures, social ventures, with the potential to positively impact tens of thousands, if not millions of people. Now imagine that Michael has heard from his Henry Crown classmate, Sonal Shah, in Washington, that there's a growing movement known as impact investing. With Sonal's help, he arranges a phone call with a group of fellows, Jonathan Greenblatt, Stephen DeBerry, Paul Kavuma, Ricardo Turan, and Suzanne Beagle, to learn more. Briefed, convinced, and knowing that he wants to focus his investments, at least initially, on Chicago, imagine that Michael organizes a breakfast with a small group of fellows in Chicago to get ideas. One of them, Phyllis Lockett, tells him about a new company with a software product that can improve math and science skills for 6 to 10-year-olds. Imagine that Michael uses the Global Leadership app on his iPad and searches for those fellows involved in primary education in the US. He sees that the superintendents of the Chicago, Newark, Los Angeles, and Washington, D.C. school systems are all Aspen New Schools Fellows. And so Michael sends them an email asking whether they join a call to do 2 things: to better understand their needs and to ask whether the sort of software the company he's looking at could help. They all agree to speak, and they all agree that properly deployed, the software could indeed fill a need. Imagine that coming off the call, LA Schools Chief John Dacey remembers that John Dana won the John P. McNulty Prize for his work with rocket ship education. John suggests that Michael call John for his advice on how best to deploy the software in a group of schools. Michael does it. John tells him that he knows the software that Michael is looking at and he loves it. Being the entrepreneur he is, imagine that John proposes that Michael make a joint investment, both in the software company and in rocket ship, to start 30 new charter schools in Chicago. Michael pulls Henry Crown Fellow Pat Ryan into the deal, and the two of them say yes. Now fast forward 2 years. The company, Rocket Ship, and the kids in Chicago are all thriving. Chicago's schools chief and Aspen New Schools fellow Jean-Claude Brizard features the software and its impact in his State of the City address. Andy Rotherham blogs about the speech. Henry Crown Fellow and U.S. Secretary of Education Arne Duncan reads Andy's blog, and at the Aspen Education Summit mentions the software company and its results. A host of New Schools Fellows running an array of charter school systems hear about Arne's speech and decide to adopt the software. One of them, James Wilcox, works in urban neighborhoods with high concentrations of Latino youth. He decides to partner with the software company to translate the product into Spanish. Sensing an opportunity, Michael, on the board of the company, presses them to think about the Latin American markets. He arranges calls with Central American fellow Luis Javier Castro. Luis Javier convinces his partners at AED in Costa Rica to fund 10 schools to pilot the Spanish language program. The pilot goes well, but runs into political headwinds with the local teachers union. Luis Javier reaches out to Cali fellow and former Costa Rican Minister of Transport, Carla Gonzalez. Carla calls the Minister of Education, who smooths the way for the pilot, and seeing the results, moves for a nationwide adoption of the software. Fellows from El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua hear about this at the Central American Leadership Summit and decide to do the same. Imagine that, the company thriving, Michael brags about it Act 2, 2015. Middle East fellow, Dima Bibi from Jordan, and Amit Bhatia from India decide to try out the software in their countries. So does Eduardo Wurzman from Brazil. So does Mariam Liombo in her Taiba schools in Uganda. So do fellows in our newest programs, in China maybe, in Mexico. Well, you get the idea. We are all part of a tremendously valuable network of entrepreneurial, purposeful leaders willing to step up to have an impact on the world. Leaders eager, as Peter loves to say, to make a dent in the universe. We've developed a powerful formula to inspire and nurture these leaders. We also know a thing or two about connecting them. You saw that from Stace's slides. So these aren't just aspirational statements. We've actually tested and refined this formula around the globe. 1,300, more than 1,300, 1,340 fellows, 65 classes, 43 countries. Fellows in the US, the Mideast, India, America and Africa, Central America and Africa. Entrepreneurs in business, education, politics, and the environment. We have a strong curriculum that forces fellows to think. We've learned how to move fellows from thought to action through personal leadership projects. We've learned how to train moderators, and we have an impressive core of moderators. And we've learned how to organize events like these, to connect and to motivate fellows to do more. I'm sure all of you have read the newspapers lately. Doesn't it strike you, like it strikes me, that there's a desperate need for enlightened leaders like yourselves? And I have to tell you, being with all of you and listening to Sylvia, to Jim, to Bongi, and yesterday to the finalists for the McNulty Prize, talking to friends that I have amongst all of you, to Mukti, to Chadia, to Patrick, to Suzanne. And I also find myself asking this question over and over: why not take this network that we've built together, to a whole new level? Why not graduate 400, 500, 600 fellows instead of 200 each year? Why not take 4 years to get to 1,500 fellows instead of 15 years? Fellows in China, in Europe, in Brazil, fellows in the Mississippi Delta. fellows in healthcare and media, and particularly in social enterprise. Why not help the scenario I just imagined play out not just in Chicago and not just in education, but in every field, in every city, everywhere that we can? It's a big idea. And of course it won't be easy. We need to maintain the quality of what we do. We need to keep the standards high for our fellows. And we need to train more superb moderators. I know that. Ever since I attended a seminar in South Africa with the Kilimanjaro class, 6 of them are here today, with Watnan and Deli and Bruce and Anne and Futi and Lumkile. Where is Lumkile? Not been seen. Okay, I thought she was here. But I was sold at that. It transformed my life, sitting with these people for that week. And I've attended many seminars with all of you. And that's continued my passion. There's many on our board, as you just saw the list, and the many are sitting here today who are doing their part to help as well. And I know that many of you have been doing your part, Chadia and Isaac, Carmen, Vivek, Brooks, raising funds, screening candidates, mentoring fellows. But by and large, and I have to say it, it's a minority of the 1,300 fellows who are stepping up to help. This global leadership, this Aspen Global Leadership Network that we've all created together. And those of you who have, whether you're in the US or in South Africa or in Panama or India, can't do it alone. We need each of you to step up, to take ownership of what together we've created. We really need you, members of the Aspen Global Leadership, to do your part to keep it going and certainly to keep it growing. I know that the world and our children, our children's children, really need all of you to step up. All of you have benefited from your fellowship, and yesterday for the McNulty Fellows, you all identified when Peter asked the question of Tim and Jay and Anne and Dele, and the things that came out of the support, the energy, were just a few of the things that you provide for each other. But you all have a wealth of resources at your fingertips. For some of you, those are financial resources. For other of you, it's access. Whether it's to money or to airlines, hotels, conference facilities, business networks. And if you talk to Alamu Faruqi or to Carmen Aren or to David Monsima, talk to Peter, each of them will surely tell you we need funding to maintain our momentum and grow. But this isn't only about funding. We're far from exhausting the supply of stellar candidates. Help us find them. We're far from finding committed and thoughtful mentors for each fellow. Be those mentors. We're far from using social media as we should to get the word out about what we're doing. Help us do that. I'm going to stop now, but just leave with words actually Jay said yesterday, that leadership is a team sport. I believe that's true, and I believe it's a very serious team sport that we're all part of. So for the next 30 minutes at your tables, we've assigned leaders to each table and note takers. I'd like you to talk about and consider these 3 things. What do you think of this big idea of going to scale? Am I crazy? Is this wrong? 2, what concerns you about this? And 3, and most importantly, how can each of you step up and help to make it a reality? And I don't want the conversation to stop here. We've got 24 hours left. I'd really like this conversation to keep going, to really discuss it deeply, because amongst such a serious group of people, I know we'll come out with some great answers. Thank you all.